Happy Monday, year 12. And it looks like we will be meeting together soon, which is brilliant. Miss Lockett and myself have been planning what we're going to go through in those hours with you. So we're really looking forward to seeing you face to face. Again, I'd just like to take a minute to thank you so much for those of you that have been messaging me, sharing work with me, letting me know what's working and what isn't. It's just really good to have that communication, guys. So obviously, we're going to see each other face to face soon, and we'll talk properly then. But we're moving on today with today's learning. So we have refocused and we're realigning ourselves with the topic of gender. We're on remote learning lesson 14. And our initial intention is to create a bridge between what we've been looking at, what we've been revising and practicing around social diversity, and how it bridges across this new topic, gender. And one of the ways we've been doing that is through the skills of reading. Now, last week we completely read an annotated text A, and actually, even though we've only looked at the headline and the stand first of text B, we will have the information to complete and copy these statements, okay? Because these statements are really zooming in and focusing on a key area of the question section B, question 3, which is what views about women's language have been offered in these two texts. So this is a little summary. Now, I'm going to read them through, then you can press pause. Now, if this takes a little bit longer because you're rereading the articles and that you're really checking for the information, I'd rather that you did that and that you took your time and maybe did, and then whatever unfolds after this, because I think these are really key ideas. We want to be able to draw out from these two articles the key ideas about attitudes and views about women's language, because that's also going to help us when we move across to looking at theory, attitudes that exist within the theoretical kind of like landscape around gender. And I'll be able to say, remember when we saw that? Here you go. This is where that idea is coming from. So these are some really key ideas. So I'm going to read them through once. Then I'm going to say pause, use your copies of the articles to copy and complete these statements. Now, they're roughly chronological. And if you like, text B is going to be a lot easier because we've only looked at the headline and the stand first and the caption. So that one actually is going to be a really easy starting point. Whereas the other one, you might need to look at the whole article. Okay, so it says here, text A, copy and complete each statement. So text A was the female article from the Daily Mail. Young women are talking like. So that reveals an attitude about the language of young women. That however we might complete that statement, there will be an attitude behind it. So young women are talking like, okay? So you need to look at your article again and think what word, what phrase could I best use? Now we're only looking at words and phrases, not big paragraphs, okay? So number 2, again, looking at text A, can you copy and complete this statement? Vocal fry and uptalk are pronunciation features used by, but they are seen as being markers of being. So that comes across the article. How would we summarize? Some of them are easier or seemingly more obvious than others. Okay. Next one. There is a concern that if young people continue to use these features, they may be. So what's one of the concerns? That if young people continue to use vocal fry and uptalk, what might they be doing? And then finally, from text A, despite some views thinking young girls sound stupid and immature, or some that think girls are using speech to sound less threatening, the truth is, now guys, we've all seen it. There was obviously a little typo there. Are using speech to sound less threatening. The truth is. So actually, what is the truth? What is one of the other offers, one of the other attitudes being offered? The truth about young girls' speech. Okay, so you can pause and do text A first, or you can listen to text B. You've got a little bit of choice. So text B, now all of this information is coming much earlier in the article. Now that in itself will give us a point to discuss in a minute when we go through the answers. But in text B, just looking at the headline, the stand first and the caption, because we've not looked at the rest of the article, that's our job today. Can you copy and complete these statements? Young women are being advised to give up and take back. Okay, vocal fry as a speech pattern is. By using vocal fry, women are disowning their. And finally, a study suggests young women using vocal fry sound less, and less. Okay, so actually text B is much easier because you're getting all of the answers from a smaller proportion of the article. Headline, stand first, and caption. Whereas text A, you might have to look at the whole article. So press pause, and we will look at some of these answers together in a minute. Okay, Off you go. Okay, guys, so as we go through the answers together, you might have slightly different wordings, but fundamentally this is what we're looking for. So young girls are talking like babies, 12-year-old girls. That's the opening criticism, the opening accusation, the opening view offered in the first article. Vocal fry and uptalk are pronunciation features used by young women. So this is demographic. Okay, so this is about age and gender. So it's always good to be aware when there's two factors that are impacting on language use. Okay, and this is about age and gender. Okay, and they're seen as being markers of being immature, stupid, less intelligent, so anything like that. Brilliant. And there is a concern that if young people, young women continue to use these features, they may be damaging their careers. Though there is this correlation between your career prospects, okay, how you progress, how you might get employed, and the way you speak. Now, we've seen exactly the same attitude in social diversity. That there is a negative attitude that looks to discriminate against people based on the way they speak. And those two articles very strongly argue that that was wrong, that if you discriminate against somebody based on how they speak, so their accent, not what they're saying, not their degree of intelligence and right or wrong answers, but simply on the sound of their speech, that is wrong. So we could already be being positioned for ourselves as A-level students to think there's going to be a point where we need to argue that, where we need to say, but you're going to discriminate against somebody based on how they speak, that is wrong. How is that different than discriminating on somebody based on their size or their color or their looks? These are wrong decisions. These are arbitrary aesthetic judgments we're making, and they're wrong. Okay, so despite some views thinking young girls sound stupid and immature, so that was in that article, or some that think girls are using speech to sound less threatening. So there was the Huffington Post opinion, that thought girls were using the speech to placate men. The truth is this. Women are using these as power tools for building relationships. So actually what I loved about the article, I've got some problems with it, but it gave this really succinct conclusion that drew our attention to the three different views about women's language in that article. So there was the positive view that women are using that language as a power tool. In other words, they were in control and ownership of the way they spoke to get a job done, to build relationships. There were some that thought they were using it to sound less threatening, and some that were saying it made them sound stupid and immature. Okay, so check your answers. Brilliant. Now, text B, easier in the sense that we're only looking at the opening headline, stand first, and caption, but that leads us to make a point. Okay, all of the attitudes in text A that we've got, all four attitudes that we've recorded there were from across the whole article. We've only looked at the beginning of text B, and it's already packed with opinion. Okay, so this is very much an opinionated piece that from the beginning makes it really clear that young women are being advised to give up vocal fry. So the stance of the journalist, the stance of their opinion in this is really clear. Give up vocal fry. Okay, so in other words, relinquish, stop talking using this vocal fry, stop talking using these pronunciation features, and take back your strong female voice. So they're suggesting that this is an exchange, that young women have to exchange one way of speaking in order to present another version of themselves. In other words, strong female voice versus vocal fry. So if we're looking at inference and deduction, you've got your strong female voice or you've got vocal fry. So vocal fry is being associated here with weakness. What's the opposite of strong? Weakness. Okay? Give up, take back. So this is an antithetical headline. It uses antithesis, it uses opposites, okay? To make it really clear what this person thinks. Okay, and then they don't hide it. Then in the stand first, vocal fries and speech pattern is destructive. Okay, so that negative view and attitude towards this aspect of women's language. That vocal fry as an aspect of women's language is seen as destructive. It's seen as being a sign of weakness. Okay, by using vocal fry, women are disowning their power. Now, we've got here so far packed into a headline, stand first, and captions, really strong views of the article writer, of the journalist about this area of women's language. Now, interestingly, her attitudes match up with a lot of the attitudes in text A. Okay, that's why I've just got that little line towards the last sentence for text B and some of the statements from text A. A study suggests young women using vocal fry sound less competent, less educated, less trustworthy, less hireable. So less hireable, That's the same as in text A, this concern that there's going to be damage to careers. Less educated, this concern that women are coming across is weak, uneducated. Competency is about your ability to do something. If you're seen as competent, people trust that you are able to do the job. So it's this idea that by using vocal fry, young women are coming across as less competent. So we're judging women's ability to do a job not based on their skill set, not based on their qualifications, not based on their expertise or their proven track record, but on how they speak. And that's the concern, isn't it? When we start making judgments against people based on factors that are seemingly discriminatory. Okay, and less hireable, less trustworthy. So huge kind of social judgments about women based on the way they speak. Now, guys, I'm a little bit politicized at the moment, but that would be the same as saying a study suggesting young women are less competent, less educated, less trustworthy, and less hireable because they come to the office wearing a skirt. Yeah, do you see? We've moved away from that level of discrimination in society. But there are still these permissible areas of discrimination, and they tend to congregate around speech and accents and the way we talk. And we allow ourselves as a society to judge people based on the way they speak. And yet, in so many other areas, we are moving towards a healthier place of recognizing you can't judge people on the aesthetics, on outward appearances, how they speak, how they sound. So, guys, what we've got is two texts that are actually suggesting similar views about language, but they are doing it in very different ways. Okay, the female Daily Mail text gets all those attitudes across the piece. We're already being hit with all these attitudes within the opening of text B. So we could argue that text B is what we call more dense. Okay, it's more opinion led. The opinion is right there from the beginning. It's a very densely packed argument, as we're going to see as we move across. We could also argue that both texts are saying the same thing, but text A is saying it in a more accessible way. Text A is adapting the information for a broader female audience. It's using references to the Kardashians. It's using the opinion of actresses. However, text B seems to be trying to convince us of the same thing, trying to convince us of the same opinion, the same attitude that vocal fry is wrong, but they're trying to do it in seemingly a much more credible trustworthy way. So there's a lot more as we go into this. It's a lot more dense. The vocabulary is more challenging. There's a sense in which they're both dealing with the same topic, but in slightly different ways. And what I would say as we go into text B, let's see if text B gives any allowance to the truth that text A ends with. So text A ends with the truth that women are in control and ownership of how they speak, that they are using their speech as power tools for building relationships to achieve what they want. So text A does actually end with an opinion that is empowering women, that's giving us a positive view of women as being in control of ownership. So my little challenge as well as we move through text B today, do we see a similar thing? Are women being empowered? Are we getting to a point of recognition that women might use this speech for their own reasons? Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So make sure you get article B next to you as we continue through.